On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we recap last night's win against the Columbus Blue Jackets. We ask the question, is the Lightning defense getting soft? And we preview tomorrow night's game against the Ottawa Senators. All that coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Danger. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Locked On Lightning. Just a reminder, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode, we're talking about last night's win against the Blue Jackets, some of the positives, some of the negatives, and some more of the negatives we talk about in our second segment as we discuss, or rather ask the question, is this Lightning team's defense getting soft at the wrong time? We talk about that as well as previewing tomorrow night's game against the Ottawa Senators. But before we jump into any of those topics, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe to our channel there. Hit that notification button so as soon as the newest episode drops, you could be listening to it, you could be watching it, and you could be commenting below with your thoughts and feelings surrounding this Lightning team. So, last night's win was obviously it was satisfying, of course. Stamkos had a phenomenal night, hat trick, 4 points. His sixth consecutive game with a goal. Vasilevsky looked, for the most part, pretty strong, except those first two goals. That really the only goals he let in, the Marchenko goals. The team looked like they were shot out of a cannon for the most part. This team continues to stay creative. This team continues to keep their feet moving. Something that through, whether it be through direct verbiage of saying that or, some other way that I've tried to convey that message. It's something when you're playing well that could easily get away from you, and staying active and not staying in one place is something that I really love to see out of this Lightning team, especially, sometimes you turn over the puck, and you're not moving your feet. Guess what? You got a guy 10 feet in front of you down the other way of the ice and nobody behind him. The only thing that really, the thing that sticks out to me really was that just how well or how well the Lightning played, considering this game, in my opinion, was, if you take away the goals scored, Columbus gave him a tough game. And I said that was going to happen. I said that at the end of March, Columbus, all these lower teams that we're going to see, the Detroits, the Pittsburghs, the Buffaloes, the Ottawas tomorrow night, those teams are going to give the Lightning a run for their money. And the Lightning are really going to have to play their best hockey against those teams. And we saw that last night. And one of the contributing factors, other than Andre Vasilevsky playing well, was, of course, the star of the show. And that was Steven Stamkos with Nikita Kucherov, who just continues to just be a point machine, even this late in the season. But Stamkos, we spoke about him on last night's episode, but I mean, the guy just continues to just somehow really defy, I guess, I don't know if rationale is the right word. Probably expectations is a better term for it. He just continues to impress on a nightly basis. Just the empty netter aside, his first two goals of the game. I mean, I just got done talking about it or mentioning it, moving your feet and just I've spoken about how if Stamkos coming into this season, how if he really wanted to become or continue to be effective as his career went on, because let's face it, it's not 19-year-old Steven Stamkos' NHL. It's a whole different animal out there. And what he has done this season has really impressed me. We've talked so much about how Nikita Kucherov on a nightly basis has really been the spoon that stirs the pot with this Tampa Bay Lightning team, and that is 100% true. But you don't get those stats, you don't get that performance. We don't get to sit here and talk about Kucherov without really talking about the guys that he's passing the puck to. He can make all these spectacular plays, all these spectacular passes here and there and whatever. But if those guys aren't burying home shots, it really is all for naught. And Steven Stamkos, like I said, I mean, even though he is still relatively young, he's still very much in the prime of his career. After, all the injuries, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but all the injuries and everything that has sidetracked him, and the fact that we are sitting here on April 10th, 2024, talking about Steven Stamkos not only picking up or on the verge of having his 40th goal of the season, but off a game in which he had a hat trick. I mean, yeah, the empty netter is whatever you want to, how you want to determine that, but I mean, this is really incredible, and really what I'm excited to see is this version of Stamkos in the playoffs. And I know this might sound as a cliche, but I still really do mean it. When I say, even when it comes to Stamkos or Vasilevsky or, name a player that has really made a difference other than Nikita Kucherov. If he plays the way he has been playing over the last month, if he could bring that into the playoffs and the Lightning defense holds up and goaltending holds up, which we'll talk about in the next segment, but if that could hold up, boy, we're going to be in for a long playoff run. And I'm perfectly fine with that. It's just, it's one of those things where it snuck up on us, I think. I think the potential has gone way past the ceiling. Or the performance has gone way past the ceiling of potential for the Tampa Bay Lightning team. And it's you're seeing it in live action, how they're really just finding ways, like we saw in this game. They kept their attack the way that they like it to have, but still, the way they started that game, and you get those two goals from Marchenko. If you listen to last night's episode, I was pissed, and I'm sure there was other Lightning fans that were pissed as well, how the Lightning could fall down 2-1 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. But this team, like they have in past games, are finding ways to win games or stay in games. And that's all you could really ask for at this point in the season, as well as with the playoffs right around the corner. So let me know in the comments below, how are your feelings on this game? Was there ever a doubt? That they were going to pull this off? I don't think so. I mean, you have to at least somehow figure at one point, whether it be tomorrow night or against Buffalo, or, that they're going to drop a game to a team that they shouldn't before the season's over. Just, get it out of their system. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Who knows? But let me know in the comments below. Is there still more to this Lightning team? Is what you see is what you get? Are they going to turn it up another notch in the playoffs? Did you expect this type of performance from the Lightning last night? How are you feeling about Steven Stamkos? Lots of questions and hopefully a lot of answers in the comment section from you guys. So Well, I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll talk about your reactions on tomorrow's episode. So coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about the Lightning defense. Even though they have been pretty been doing a very good job of outscoring their opponents lately, still you're seeing some little light spots in their defense on goals, and we're going to talk about that and if that's going to be a point of concern going forward. But before we grab any of those questions, we're going to talk about our last sponsor of today's, one of our first sponsors, of today's shows, and that is our friends over at Indeed. Now, when you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed, because with Indeed's software hiring platform, you could attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you could do it all with Indeed. Hate waiting. Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. I always talk about it. One of my good friends started his own business about 6 months ago, and it grew basically over the span of a month, past his expectations. And guess what? He needed a couple of people to help him out with shipping, billing, all that crazy stuff that comes with owning a business. He got 3 prime candidates right away with Indeed. With Indeed, he was able to match as soon as possible matching as soon as possible as a sponsor with a post. He got a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed helped match with the job description, and boom, he was able to hire people right away. So Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for the quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So go ahead to Indeed right now. And now with Indeed, you only pay with the quality applications. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So once again, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow where podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube channel right now, I got to point this out, but if I'm looking weird, I have to sneeze like crazy, and for some reason I'm not sneezing and I look weird. Anyway, so we're talking about the Lightning defense, and the thing that has been concerning to me, or rather has concerned me, was those 2 goals last night, which we saw. One of them was more concerning than the other. I believe it was the second one. And, well, both of them were concerning in their own way, because the Lightning defense, and I'm hopefully this is just a one-game thing, and because I didn't really see anything like this in the Pittsburgh game. But the Lightning were letting Marchenko and just the Blue Jackets on those 2 rushes just go down as deep as they really wanted to. And you can't have that. You can't have a soft slot area. I don't care if it's on a rush. I don't care if it's, on just a regular sequence. The Lightning need to do better. They need, you can't give up chances like that in the regular season. You certainly can't give up chances like that in the playoffs. And against a team like that, a team like the Blue Jackets, who are just counting down the days till the season's over, just so they could start getting ready for the draft if they haven't done already, you got to be better. You got to be better. And the thing that really kind of worried me on that was, I believe it was the second Marchenko goal. Chernak tried to stand him up. I know Marchenko's a big guy, but still, Chernak's got to do more on that. And that's the thing that kind of stresses me out when I'm thinking about the long term with this Lightning team with the playoffs in a 7-game series potentially, and right now it's looking like against the Boston Bruins. And that's what worries me, is that, a Chernak, there's the possibility, especially when you've looked at him all year, he's been very up and down, more down than most times than not. And the last thing the Lightning do need going into the playoffs against any team, even if it's Boston or whomever else, you don't want to have any defensive liabilities. You don't want to have anybody who is not pulling their weight. And that's what worries me the most with this Lightning team. Now, to ask the question as a whole, have the Lightning, or are the Lightning getting soft defensively? You look at last night and say yes, but really, for the most part, I think not. I think that there are times when they sort of get unraveled and, luck is on their side. But for the most part, I think that really the Lightning have done a good job of keeping it together. Now, if we see more performances like this in the next couple of games, where especially other teams are cashing in on high danger chances, that's an issue. And that's something that needs to be addressed and also cleaned up right away. And it all starts with Chernak, because, some of you or most of you might think, well, it's Hedman or Radish, Sergachev. I would be shocked if he comes back game one. Most likely we won't see him until maybe midway, or if not late in that series, if it does go to a 7, or possibly if the Lightning do advance in the first game, in game 1 of the second round. But when I look at who needs to kind of step up and be the leader, I hate bringing back the ghost of Ryan McDonough, but to be the top defensive guy like McDonough was in years past, Chernak has to be that guy. I think we could all agree he kind of, whether he wanted to or not, was past that torch when McDonough was traded away to Nashville. And he really needs to step up, or the team is not going to survive. I'm not saying that they're there right now. As for the level of concern as to where the Lightning are defensively right now, given what we saw last night, I would say maybe a 1. Like I said, they ended up winning the game 5-2. They kind of pretty much clamped it down once after the second goal was scored. And they have really, they've outscored their opponents 10-6 in the last 2 games. So I can't really argue with that when you're averaging 5 goals a game in your last 2 games. And for the most part, you're pretty much, well, excuse me. I mean, they didn't score 10 goals. They scored 9. But you're averaging a shade under 5 your last 2 games, and for the most part, the Penguin game was kind of crazy. And they almost came back and won that game, and you're going to have your games where you're just going to have weird games. But last night, I mean, you played well against a very bad team. He gave up 2 goals, and then he clamped it down. There's really not much else you could ask for in that scenario. But, it's just one of those things where you're looking at where those 2 chances are. And, I'm sure there's going to be some Lightning fans that are going to kind of be as equally upset at the defense as they may be at Vasilevsky. Some people might say he should stop those. Those are very close and very mid-level slot shots, and it's tough, especially with the defender in front trying to stop him. It's just a very tough situation that your defense has put you in if you're Andrei Vasilevsky. So, as long as we don't see more of those chances, I think everyone's going to be fine. Everyone's going to be happy. And as long as this team continues to score, I don't see any issues in the foreseeable future. So let me know in the comments below what you think about that. And coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about our matchup, our unfortunate matchup, because I just do not look forward to playing this team. But we'll be talking about tomorrow night's game against the Ottawa Senators. But before we jump into that topic and wrap things up with that, we're going to wrap up with our last sponsor of tonight's show, and that is our friends over at Game Time. Now, let me just get the right sponsor up. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You could use them to buy Rays tickets. I've been using them for a while to buy Mets tickets up by me. My favorite, I have a few favorite features with Game Time. They got the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. They got this toggling feature that shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Who loves that? And even my more favorite important, other than the views from your seat, it's the flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So one last time, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment below, and hit that notification button so as soon as the newest episode drops, you'll be notified. And of course, you could listen to this podcast wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. So we're talking about tomorrow night's game against the Ottawa Senators, a team that I think a lot of Lightning fans can agree do not ever look forward to playing. And if you need any reason as to why, I mean, the Lightning have really immensely struggled over the last couple of years with this Senators team. I don't know what it is. They're just a scrappy team. And I just don't know how much more to say. They just have the Lightning's number. They always give them tough games. The Lightning always seem to kind of just get overwhelmed. Even during the cup winning years, the Lightning still had their trouble with this Ottawa team, and it's just one of those things where if there wasn't an emphasis before, there is definitely one now that this Lightning team needs to jump out to a good start tomorrow night. They need to go out. They need to score goals. I would prefer to see them jump out to a 2-goal lead in the first period. The Lightning, if they win tomorrow night, they will even up the season series. Right now, the Ottawa Senators are up 2-1, winning one game back in October and then winning the other in early February, if you remember correctly. And I would imagine, because that's just what you get in these kind of games, you're going to get a ton of physicality. And it's going to be one of those games where Brady Tkachuk, the captain of the Ottawa Senators, is going to try and do anything he can to get under the skin of the Lightning players. Not because there's bad blood, but because this is the last time you're going to see them for the year. They're a playoff team. You're not. And as we all know, Brady Tkachuk loves to take his liberties already with pushing the envelope, and we're definitely going to see probably a little bit more of that in this game. And the key is to just really not allow that to envelop your game. Just really stick to what you're good at, stick to what you know works for you. Let Tanner Jeannot or Mikey Eyssimont go out there and take care of business. Just maybe lay down the gauntlet real quick with Tkachuk and just go out there and get after it, because you get stuck into that whole physicality game and kind of just you lose sight of what you really have to go out there, and you lose sight of getting the job done. And I expect Jonas Korpisalo to be playing in this one. You might sound familiar because he is. The Lightning got to know him very well during the Bubble Cup run in game 1 of that first round series with Columbus, the 7 overtime game, because he was the goaltender for Columbus. I think he made like 70 saves that game, which is insane. But so the Lightning are very familiar with Jonas Korpisalo, and this is a guy, you look at his record, he's 20, 25, and 4. His goals against average is not looking good. His save percentage is not looking good. This is a guy that I firmly believe is a very good goaltender. You put good defense in front of him, and he's could possibly pass for top 10. I'm not going to say he's top 5. So don't let his numbers deceive you. The Lightning should definitely go out there and challenge him. I don't want to see any of this single-digit shot crap that we have seen from this Lightning team at certain points within the last couple of weeks. I know they have won those games, and I know they've been able to go out and that not have to inhibit them from winning games or scoring goals. But this is a guy that on any given night could shut you out if he gets too comfortable. And that's why the Lightning need to go out there and they need to make his life living hell. Anytime you get a chance, throw the puck towards the net, create second chances, create rebounds, create chances for your other guys, give Korpisalo different looks. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Stamkos, especially now that he's hot. He's looking for a 7th straight game with a goal. Set up some one-timers. I know that's possible borderline blasphemy coming from my mouth, considering all the grief I've given him over the last couple of months or so. But you got to give this guy Korpisalo different looks, and that's what you got to do as you continue to get ready for the playoffs. Sometimes during a playoff series, you're gonna have to shake things up, whether you've won or lost, because other teams, they're going to try to adapt. You get to know each other pretty well over the course of a 7-game series. And like I said, going into this last stretch of the Lightning's regular season, you got to treat every game as a must win, because they really are, because it's not so much adding points to your total in the standings or, whatever. It's more so just about getting ready, and if you are ready, staying ready for the playoffs. So let me know in the comments below your predictions for this game. I'm going to say 4-1 Lightning, maybe 5-1 Lightning given an empty netter. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, you could follow us on our social media pages at LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as Lockdown_Lightning on Instagram. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DankyDank, DENKYD8NK. I love hearing from all of you. Drop some comments. Hit me up with some questions. Love to hear it, and we'll be back on tomorrow's episode, hopefully, to discuss a Lightning win. So that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.